pull a bill out of your pocket and really look at it, it's just paper. A little ink, a number, a face. On its own, it can't feed you, warm you, or keep you alive. And yet you would work for hours to get more of it, and so would almost everyone you know. Why? Here is the answer that should unsettle you. That paper has value for one reason only, because everyone around you agrees to pretend it does. Money is not a thing. It is a shared story, so old and so total that you mistake it for a fact of nature. And the moment enough people stop believing the story, the paper becomes exactly what it looks like. Nothing. By the end of this, you'll never hand over cash the same way again. Because the tale you were taught about where money came from, the neat little story in the textbooks, is almost certainly wrong, and the truth is far stranger. You were probably taught how this started. Barter. You had chickens, your neighbor baked bread, you swapped. Then swapping got clumsy, the story goes, so humans invented money to make trading easy, and civilization marched forward. Here is the problem with that tidy textbook tale. Anthropologists went looking for those barter societies, and after more than a century of searching, they have never found one. Not one. An anthropologist named David Graeber made this argument famous, and his point is blunt. No historian or explorer ever described a functioning economy that ran purely on barter, just waiting for coins to be invented. The famous barter world is a thought experiment that got mistaken for history, which means the real story of money starts somewhere else entirely, somewhere with no coins in it at all. So how did people in a village actually get by before money? Not by haggling over every chicken. They used something much more human. Trust, debt, memory. Picture a small community where everyone knows everyone. You need bread, so the baker gives you bread. No coins change hands. He just remembers that you owe him. Later, he needs his roof fixed, and you're a decent hand with a hammer, so you help, and now the debt tips the other way. Life ran on a vast, invisible web of favors and obligations, kept track of in people's heads. You didn't settle up on the spot. You stayed a little in debt to each other all the time, and that ongoing debt was exactly what held the community together. Money didn't grease trade between friends. It wasn't needed there at all. So if trust worked so well, why does money exist at all? What was it actually for? Here the story turns. Because money seems to have been born less from friendly trade and more from precise measurement and often from power. Some of the earliest records we have of anything like money aren't coins. They're accounts. In ancient Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago, temples and palaces needed to track who owed what, how much grain a worker was due, how much a farmer owed the temple. They developed standardized units to keep the books straight. Money began as accounting, a way to write down debt precisely, long before it was a coin you could drop in your hand. And that reveals what money truly is, underneath the metal and paper. It is not wealth itself. It is a measuring stick for debt and obligation. A number that lets you compare a chicken to a haircut to an hour of work on a single scale. The coin didn't have to be valuable. It just had to be countable and trusted. So where did the coins finally come from? The first true coins appear surprisingly late, around 2,600 years ago, in a kingdom called Lydia, in what is now Turkey. And notice who made them. Not merchants, not friendly neighbors, kings, states. Because coins solved a very particular problem, and it wasn't buying bread, it was armies. If you want to feed and pay thousands of soldiers who are strangers marching through lands full of strangers, trust and remember debt collapse. Nobody knows anyone. So a ruler stamps out coins, pays the soldiers, and then demands those very same coins back as taxes. Suddenly, an entire population has to get hold of the king's coins to pay what they owe, which means they have to work and sell to earn them. Money didn't spread just because it was handy. It spread because power pushed it, Which brings us to the strangest chapter of all, and the one that proves money is pure agreement. Because for one society, the money wasn't paper or gold, it was stone. Enormous stone. On the Pacific island of Yap, people used giant carved stone discs as money, some of them taller than a person and far too heavy to move. And here's the part that sounds impossible. When someone spent one of these giant stones, it didn't go anywhere. It stayed exactly where it was. The whole island simply agreed that the ownership had changed. Everyone knew who the stone belonged to now, even though it hadn't budged an inch. There's even a famous account of a stone that sank to the bottom of the sea on its way to the island. No one could see it or touch it ever again. And yet the islanders agreed it still existed, still had value, and still counted as that family's wealth. An invisible fortune at the bottom of the ocean, real because everyone said so. Stop and sit with that, because it is the whole secret laid bare. A stone nobody could see at the bottom of the sea worked as money, which means money was never really about the object at all. It was always about the shared agreement, the ledger in everyone's mind. The stone, the coin, the paper, they are just tokens for a collective act of belief, and once you see that, look at your own money again. That bill in your pocket used to be backed by gold, a promise that you could trade the paper for actual metal. Not anymore. For decades now, the money in nearly every country has been backed by nothing you can hold, nothing but the promise of the government and the trust of everyone using it. Economists have a name for this. They call it fiat money, from a Latin word meaning, let it be so. Its entire value rests on a collective, let it be so. It is worth something purely because we all act as if it is, which sounds fragile, and sometimes it is. When people lose faith in a currency, when they stop believing the number means anything, the story can collapse. In the worst cases, prices spiral out of control, and money becomes so worthless, people have burned banknotes for warmth because the paper was worth more as fuel than as money. The bill didn't change. The belief did. And when the belief died, the money died with it. But here's the thing. That fragility is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Money has always been a story we tell together, from the remembered debts of a tiny village, to the clay accounts of ancient temples, to a sunken stone off the coast of Yap, to the numbers glowing on your bank screen right now, which aren't even paper anymore, just data, a shared agreement, all the way down. So look at that bill in your hand one more time. It really is just paper. It was always just paper. The value was never in the object. It was in the quiet, unspoken, staggeringly powerful agreement between you and everyone around you to treat it as real. Money isn't a thing you own. It's a story you're all telling, together every single day, without ever saying a word.